The Milky Way contains over 100 billion stars, each a sun, each with its own story. The numbers are almost too vast to comprehend, but the mathematics tells a compelling tale. Among those 100 billion stars, billions of Earth-like planets orbit within habitable zones, worlds where liquid water could flow, where chemistry could become biology. The Drake equation quantifies this probability. It suggests that even if only a tiny fraction of these worlds develop intelligent life, our galaxy should be teeming with civilizations. Some would be millions of years more advanced than us, capable of engineering entire star systems, leaving cosmic signatures impossible to miss. We should see their works. We should hear their voices. Where is everybody? This question shatters our cosmic expectations. For decades, SETI searchers have scanned the heavens. Radio telescopes sweep the sky, listening for artificial signals, seeking Dyson spheres that harness stellar energy, hunting for interstellar probes that might be passing through. The search has been systematic, comprehensive, relentless, and it has found nothing. No transmissions, no megastructures, no evidence whatsoever, only silence. A profound, echoing void we call the Great Silence. This contradiction between expectation and observation forms the heart of the Fermi Paradox. The mathematics screams that we cannot possibly be alone. The universe whispers back with empty static. The numbers promise cosmic company. Reality offers only solitude. Where are the ancient civilizations that should have colonized the galaxy by now? Where are the radio beacons announcing their presence? Where are the engineering projects that would reshape entire constellations? The Great Silence is not merely an absence of signals. It is a fundamental challenge to our understanding of life in the universe. Explanations emerge from this void, each more unsettling than the last. Perhaps there is a great filter, some inevitable barrier that destroys civilizations before they can spread. Maybe we are simply too primitive to recognize their communications. Or perhaps advanced beings deliberately hide, watching silently from the darkness. But the most disturbing possibility lurks in the static. What if we truly are alone? What if, in all this immensity, consciousness flickered only here? The silence suggests a universe that should be shouting with life. Instead, we hear only our own echo. This is the paradox that forces us to confront our cosmic insignificance. Or perhaps our terrifying uniqueness. The numbers say we cannot be the only ones. The silence replies, why not? But the most disturbing. Consider the numbers. 100 billion stars in our Milky Way alone. 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. 10 to the 22nd. To 10 to the 24th stars total. The sheer scale should be staggering, overwhelming. It suggests possibility. For 60 years, we've tuned our ears to the cosmic static. The Drake equation gave us hope. Early estimates, like Frank Drake's optimistic calculation, suggested up to 1 billion communicative civilizations could exist right here in our galaxy. The numbers seem to promise companionship in the void. But SETI's silence has been absolute, not a single unambiguous artificial signal. No cosmic conversations. No alien engineering projects lighting up the darkness, only static. Only quiet. This is the Fermi Paradox in its purest form, with such staggering numbers. Where is everybody? The silence isn't just puzzling, it's profound. It speaks volumes about a universe that should be teeming. But instead, whispers. What if we've been asking the wrong question? What if the silence is not absence, but strategy? Consider a forest, a dark, ancient forest. In such a place, any creature that reveals itself risks becoming prey. So the wise stay hidden, perfectly still, perfectly silent. They watch, they listen, and they eliminate any threat that dares to make a sound. This is the dark forest theory, first articulated by author Cixin. It proposes a chilling answer to our cosmic loneliness. The theory rests on simple, brutal axioms of cosmic sociology. First, all civilizations want to survive. Second, you can never know another civilization's true intentions across the interstellar gulf. Third, technology explodes unpredictably, making potential threats escalate with terrifying speed. Fourth, communication is too slow for trust to ever be established. The result, a universe where every civilization is a hunter hiding in the shadows. A galaxy where broadcasting your location is equivalent to lighting a signal flare in that dark forest. The most rational strategy becomes perfect silence. Stay hidden and eliminate anyone foolish enough to reveal themselves. This explains why we see no mega engineering, no cosmic beacons. Why advanced civilizations would deliberately avoid contact. The galaxy is settled into an equilibrium of radio silence. But those who break it don't survive long enough to be detected. We aren't searching an empty universe. We're whispering in a forest of hidden hunters who have learned the only way to survive is to stay perfectly quiet. Our continued broadcasting through SETI and other transmissions might not be a quest for companionship, but a potentially suicidal beacon announcing our location to cosmic predators. The numbers still hold 100 billion stars, 2 trillion galaxies. But now they feel different. Not like potential friends, but like watching eyes lurking in the darkness, waiting to see who breaks the silence first. The Drake equations range from less than 1 to more than 1 million civilizations. Takes on new meaning. Perhaps the high estimates were right all along. Perhaps the galaxy is full. But they're hiding from us, from each other, from whatever else might be out there. And our most fundamental question changes not, are we alone? But what if we're not? And what if that's worse? What if we are the prey? What if we are the prey? In the spring of 1960, the rolling hills of Green Bank, West Virginia, became the silent front line of a new kind of revolution. Here, amidst the quietude of the Appalachian wilderness, a young astronomer named Frank Drake took a step that would forever alter our relationship with the void. He pointed an 85-foot steel ear towards the heavens. This 26-meter radio telescope was more than a machine. It was a defiance against the crushing silence of the stars. This was the birth of Project Ozma, named after a princess from a fictional world far away. It reflected a radical, almost haunting optimism. For the first time in human history, we stopped wondering and started listening. Drake's logic was precise, anchored in the cold mathematics of the cosmos. He tuned his receiver to 1,420 megahertz. This is the 20-centimeter emission line, the frequency of neutral hydrogen. In the language of the universe, this is the great constant. It is the most abundant element in existence, radiating a soft, steady hum that permeates the dark between galaxies. If there were others out there, peering through the same cosmic fog, they would surely use this universal hailing frequency. It was the cosmic watering hole, a place where intelligence might meet. His targets were 2 stars, siblings to our own sun, lurking roughly 11 light years away. Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani. The search was methodical, it was slow. Then, on April 8, 1960, the silence was shattered. Our Ravmik powered pierced the static, a signal coming from the direction of Epsilon Eridani. In that agonizing moment, the air in the control room must have thickened with the weight of eternity. The realization that we were not alone, that the universe was crowded, that eyes were looking back. But the thrill was fleeting. The signal was not a call from the stars, but a ghost of our own making. Interference from a secret military aircraft experiment. The stars remained indifferent, despite 150 hours of observation. The cosmic silence did not break again. Yet, the failure was an illusion. Project Ozma had already achieved the impossible. It stripped the search for extraterrestrial life of its fringe status and forced it into the light of rigorous science. From this first attempt emerged the Drake equation, a mathematical scaffold designed to estimate how many civilizations might be lurking in the shadows of the Milky Way. It turned the mystery into a calculation. We realized that while the stars were quiet today, the technology to hear the answer had finally arrived. We were no longer shouting into a storm. We were waiting for the wind to carry a voice. The experiment proved that the search for the other is, at its core, a search for ourselves. A desperate, beautiful attempt to prove that the dark is not empty. Project Ozma was the moment humanity finally stood up and asked the question. And we have been listening for the answer ever since. In the autumn of 1961, within the quiet seclusion of Greenbank, West Virginia, a young astronomer named Frank Drake took a piece of chalk and began to map the boundaries of our isolation. He scribbled a string of letters and symbols across a blackboard, an elegant, terrifying sequence that would become known as the Drake equation. N equals R star times FP times Ne FL Phi and L. It It was a mathematical framework for our existential loneliness, a formula designed not to provide a definitive answer, but to organize the vast scale of our ignorance. We begin with the certainties R star, the rate of star formation in our galaxy. Our instrument, the Milky Way, is a factory of light churning out between 1.5 and 3 new suns every single year. Then, FP, the fraction of those stars that possess planets. Once a matter of wild speculation, we now know that planets are not the exception, but the rule. The galaxy is heavy with them, trillions of worlds spinning in the dark. Yet, as we move through the equation, the firm ground of physics begins to crumble into the shifting sands of biology and sociology. We search for the number of planets with the right conditions for life. But mere habitability is a deceptive metric to reach the next variable. Phi. The probability of intelligent life. The universe demands a sequence of miracles. In the 1960s, the mood was optimistic. The thinkers at Green Bank believed intelligence was a natural, almost inevitable conclusion of evolution. They set the value of phi near 100%. But the modern era has brought a colder realism. We have realized that a planet needs more than just water and warmth. It needs the rhythmic grinding of plate tectonics to regulate its atmosphere. It needs the perfect balance of land and sea. Recent research suggests these requirements slash the probability of intelligence to a staggering low, perhaps as little as 0.003%. The window of possibility is closing. This leads us to the heart of the Fermi Paradox. If the universe is a mathematical engine for creating life, why is the silence so deafening? Why does the sky offer nothing but a cold, indifferent stare? The answer may lie in the final, most haunting variable L, the average lifetime of a communicative civilization. If the value of N is low, we are faced with two grim possibilities. Either the spark of intelligence is a freak accident, a 1 in a billion error in the cosmic code, or civilizations are merely momentary flashes in the dark, brief flickers of light that self-destruct or succumb to the void before their first radio waves can even reach a neighbor. We are conducting a census of ghosts. The Drake equation is no longer a search for others. It is a mirror. It forces us to ask if we are the first to reach the light, or merely the latest to wait for an answer that will never come. We are alone, measuring the distance between the stars and the depth of our own precarious survival. It was the summer of 1950, deep within the Utarian walls of the West Cafeteria at Los Alamos National Laboratory. 4 of the most formidable minds on the planet sat down for a mundane lunch: Enrico Fermi, Edward Teller, Emil Konopinski, and Herbert York. These were the architects of the atomic age, men who spent their days navigating the subatomic architecture of the universe. But on this afternoon, the conversation drifted towards something far less rigorous. They were laughing about a cartoon in the New Yorker, a whimsical sketch about aliens stealing the city's trash cans and the sensationalist flying saucer craze gripping a post-war public. It was light-hearted, trivial, a brief respite from the heavy physics of the Cold War. But as they walked toward their table, the laughter died away. Enrico Fermi, a man legendary for his ability to calculate the secrets of the cosmos on the back of a napkin, fell into a sudden, brooding silence. He was no longer thinking about cartoons or trash cans. He was looking at the scale of the universe itself in the middle of their meal, without preamble or warning. Fermi uttered 3 words that would shatter the scientific optimism of his era and haunt the halls of astrobiology for eternity. Where is everybody? The question was a physical blow. It was not a philosophical musing, but a cold mathematical verdict. Fermi looked at the Milky Way and saw a galaxy containing roughly 100 billion stars. He saw a cosmic arena that has existed for approximately 10 billion years. The numbers were screaming. Even if the emergence of life is a rare, fluke event, the sheer, staggering volume of opportunity suggests that thousands, if not millions, of civilizations should have risen from the stardust. Fermi began to calculate the speed of expansion. If a single civilization possessed even modest technology, traveling at a mere 1% to 10% the speed of light, they could leap from star to star, system to system in years. They would have saturated every corner of the galaxy. To us, 100 million years sounds like an eternity. To the universe, it is a blink. It is a rounding error in a 10 billion year history. This is the paradox. The logic dictates that the galaxy should have been colonized dozens of times over before the Earth had even finished cooling. Our sky should be crowded. It should be teeming with the archaeological remains of ancient empires, the radio noise of 1 billion voices, or the titanic megastructures of Type 2 civilizations. Yet, we look up and find only a terrifying velvet silence. The stars do not speak. The void remains empty. Fermi's lunch break realization transformed a joke about flying saucers into a fundamental crisis. It forces us into a corner with only 2 exits. Either we are uniquely, impossibly alone in this vast dark, or there is something out there. Something systematic and invisible. A great filter that erases life before it can ever cross the bridge between the stars. The lunch ended. The scientists returned to their work. But the question remained behind, echoing in the cafeteria. Where are they? If the math says they should be here, and they aren't, then we are living in a silence that shouldn't exist. Look up. Within the observable horizon of our universe, there are an estimated 10, raised to the 22nd to 10, raised to the 24th stars. Each one is a sun. Each one is a potential engine for life. By all accounts, the cosmos should be screaming with the radio chatter of 1 billion empires. It should be a crowded theater of activity. And yet we find ourselves standing in the center of a profound, terrifying void. This is the great silence. It is a haunting stillness that defies logic. If the laws of physics are the same everywhere, why are we alone? The economist Robin Hanson proposed a cold, mathematical answer to this riddle. He called it the Great Filter. Imagine the long, arduous journey from dead matter to a spacefaring Kardashev 2 or 3 scale civilization. This path is not a gentle slope. It is a series of evolutionary hurdles. The hypothesis suggests that somewhere along this timeline, there exists a barrier so improbable, so insurmountable, that almost no one survives it. It is a cosmic sieve, trailing the wreckage of 1 billion failed worlds in its wake. The question that defines our species is simple. Where is the filter? If the bottleneck is behind us, then we are the cosmic exception. We are the lucky ones who slipped through the needle's eye. Perhaps the miracle was the very beginning, the transition from chemistry to biology. Or perhaps it was the staggering delay in our own history. For nearly 2 billion years, life on Earth remained stagnant. Simple cells drifted aimlessly in a primordial soup, unable to bridge the gap to complexity. It took 2 billion years of random collisions before the first eukaryotes emerged. If this evolutionary leap is the filter, then the universe is nothing more than a vast, silent graveyard of microbes. We are a solitary flame burning in an infinite dark, the first to ever make it this far. But there is a darker possibility, one that should make your blood run cold. If the great filter is ahead of us, then we are breathing the borrowed air of a doomed species. It suggests that every civilization reaches our level of technological maturity only to hit a wall and vanish. The candidates for this future extinction are lurking in the shadows of our own progress. We face the looming shadows of nuclear self-annihilation, misaligned artificial intelligence, or perhaps something more sinister waiting in the vacuum. There is the theory of berserker probes, autonomous self-replicating machines designed by some ancient, paranoid precursor to erase any potential competitor the moment they broadcast their presence. This is why the search for life elsewhere is so treacherous. Finding a single fossilized microbe on Mars would not be a triumph. It would be the worst news ever delivered to humanity. It would prove that life is easy to start. It would suggest that the bottleneck is not in our past, but in our future. It means the filter is still waiting for us. We are either a fundamental miracle of biology, or we are just another spark in a cycle of inevitable extinction, waiting for our turn to go out. The galaxy is a graveyard. That is the comforting answer to the Fermi Paradox. It is far easier to believe that the stars are cold and empty than to confront the alternative. In 1973, a radio astronomer from MIT named John A. Ball looked into the void and saw something much more unsettling than a vacuum. He saw a mirror publishing his findings in the journal. Ball proposed a solution that redefined our cosmic isolation. He called it the zoo hypothesis. It suggests that the silence we hear is not an absence of life, but a deliberate, coordinated policy of concealment. Imagine our world not as a lonely rock drifting through an indifferent ocean of stars, but as a carefully maintained wildlife preserve. In this scenario, advanced extraterrestrial civilizations are not missing. They are lurking. They have reached a level of maturity that allows them to observe us from the shadows, practicing a form of universal non-interference. It is a real-world manifestation of the Prime Directive, a cosmic law that forbids them from breaking the sanctuary of our planet. They see our wars, our first radio broadcast, and our tentative steps into the vacuum. And they chose to say nothing. But for this hypothesis to hold, the scale of the conspiracy must be absolute. It implies a chilling level of galactic coordination. Every single civilization across the span of 13 billion years must agree to a total blackout on communication. A single stray signal, one accidental flare of light, would shatter the illusion forever. This makes the zoo hypothesis a ghost in the machinery of science. Ball noted that the theory is falsifiable but not confirmable. We can prove they exist the moment they step into the light, but we can never truly prove their absence is due to a policy of divine restraint. We are left grasping at shadows. But then, the concept takes a darker, more clinical turn. If the zoo hypothesis is the gentler version of our seclusion, then the laboratory hypothesis is its cold, predatory twin. In this view, Earth is not a park for observation. We are subjects in a high-stakes, multi-generational experiment. Our isolation is not a courtesy. It is a controlled variable. Our entire history, from the first fire to the splitting of the atom, might be nothing more than a curated dataset for observers we are fundamentally incapable of perceiving. This transforms the Fermi Paradox from a simple mystery into a form of cosmic paranoia. The question is no longer, where is everyone? The question becomes, why are they hiding the exit? We are standing in a room with invisible walls, surrounded by an audience that refuses to applaud. The galaxy is crowded. The galaxy is watching. And we are the only ones who do not know the rules of the game. August 15th, 1977. While the world below lay in the grip of a humid summer night, a silent, unseen drama was unfolding above the plains of Ohio. At the Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope, the relentless rotation of our planet was sweeping an invisible beam across the stars. It was a routine sweep of the Sagittarius constellation, until the void suddenly spoke. When astronomer Jerry R. Ammon sat down to review the computer printouts days later, the cold binary logic of the machine shattered there. Amidst a sea of low-level numbers and static was a sequence that should not exist. 6 characters that would become the most famous code in scientific history, 6-5. Ammon's red pen circled the sequence, scrawling a single frantic word in the margin: wow. This was not the messy, wideband roar of a dying star or the chaotic interference of a passing satellite. This was something precise. Something intentional. The signal was locked onto 1424 megahertz to an astronomer. This is sacred ground. It is the hydrogen line, the resonant frequency of the most abundant element in the cosmos. Scientists call it the magic frequency because if an intelligent civilization wanted to pierce the veil of cosmic noise, if they wanted to find a common language written in the laws of physics, this is where they would shout. The signal didn't just flicker. It performed a perfect 72-second ballet. Because the Big Ear telescope was a fixed instrument, it relied on the Earth's rotation to scan the heavens. Any true celestial source would rise and fall in a very specific bell-shaped curve as it passed through the telescope's field of vision. The wow! Signal matched that curve with terrifying precision. It didn't just appear. It moved with the stars. It was a scream in a silent universe, peaking at a staggering 30 standard deviations above the background noise. For 72 seconds, the silence of the vacuum was replaced by a concentrated blast of coherent energy. And then, just as quickly as it arrived, the universe went cold. Big Ear had 2 feet horns, designed to catch a signal twice as the Earth turned yet. While the first horn captured the majesty of the broadcast, the second horn, passing over the exact same patch of sky just 3 minutes later, found only the hollow hiss of the vacuum. The source had vanished. For nearly half a century, we have returned to that coordinates in Sagittarius. We have used terms 1,000 times more sensitive than Big Ear. We have listened with the patience of a ghost hunter, but we have found nothing but a haunting, suffocating silence. Is it possible that we witnessed a freak of nature? Modern theorists point to something called hydrogen superradiance, a rare, violent burst caused by a magnetar interacting with a hydrogen cloud, a cosmic fluke of physics masquerading as intelligence. But this is mere speculation. The wow signal remains the ultimate message in a bottle. It possesses every hallmark of an alien technology, yet it lacks the one thing science demands for a revolution: reproducibility. We are left with a single tantalizing data point. A 72-second cosmic heartbeat that reminds us how lonely the dark truly is. It was a greeting that ended before we even knew we were being spoken to.
In the high desert of Northern California, tucked away at the Hat Creek Radio Observatory, 42 steel eyes turn in silence. They do not sleep, they do not blink. They wait for a sound that might never come. This is the Allen Telescope Array. It is a monument to human curiosity, carved from the earth and funded by the vision of Paul Allen. For decades, we were nomads in the radio spectrum, hitching rides on instruments designed for other purposes. But here, the hunt changed. This ground was broken specifically to listen for the others. The architecture is unconventional. Instead of one massive monolith, we find 42 smaller dishes, each measuring 6.1 meters. Together they function as a single terrifyingly sharp mind. This strategy, the large number of small dishes, grants us a perspective we have never had before. Most telescopes look through a needle's eye at a tiny patch of the sky. The Allen Telescope Array sees the horizon. Its field of view is 17 times larger than any single dish that came before it, allowing it to sweep the heavens with a speed that borders on the predatory. Beneath the steel skin of these dishes lies a digital monster. To find a signal in the infinite static of the cosmos, you cannot simply listen. You must dissect the universe. The array operates across a staggering frequency range, from 0.5 to 11.2 gigahertz. Within this span lies the water hole. It is a quiet sanctuary in the radio spectrum, bounded by the emission lines of hydrogen and hydroxyl. It is where the building blocks of life itself whisper into the dark. If a civilization wished to be found, logic dictates they would call out from here. But the silence is thick. To pierce it, the array employs a spectrometer of an unimaginable power, processing signals across 600 million channels simultaneously. Imagine trying to listen to every single radio station in the galaxy at the exact same moment. Every second, gigabytes of data flood the system. It is a digital deluge, a wall of falling light where every pixel is a frequency. Every flicker, a potential message. Yet, the greatest challenge is not the distance of the stars, but the noise of ourselves. We live in a world of electronic ghosts. Every cell phone, every satellite, every radar pulse is a scream that threatens to drown out the whisper we seek. The array must filter through this terrestrial interference, discarding the mundane to search for the impossible. It is a hunt for a single, coherent, narrowband signal. A needle in a cosmic haystack the size of the galaxy. The dishes swivel in perfect unison, their structures glowing in the fading light of the desert sun. They are our sentinels. They are a testament to a species that refuses to accept the silence as final. We are no longer just looking at the stars. We are interrogating them. We are waiting for the moment when the static breaks, when the 600 million channels fall away, leaving only one voice, one signal, one proof that in the vast, cold emptiness of the void, we were never truly alone. If they are out there, we are finally prepared to hear them.
In the freezing silence of 1964, a Soviet astronomer named Nikolai Kardashev looked at the stars and saw something more than points of light. He saw a fuel source. He proposed a metric that would strip away the romance of alien contact, replacing it with the cold, hard logic of consumption. This is the Kardashev scale. It does not ask who the others are, or what they believe. It only asks one thing: how much of the universe have they devoured? At the base of this ladder sits the Type 1 civilization, the planetary masters. To reach this first rung, a species must harness every single watt of energy available on their homeworld, roughly 10 to the 16th watts. This is a world where the weather is a choice, where the tectonic plates are tamed and the entire planet functions as a single integrated circuit. We are not there yet. Humanity currently sits at a mere step 0.73, still crawling through the dirt of our own cradle, burning the chemical remnants of our ancestors. But look upward. Beyond the planetary horizon lies the terrifying silhouette of the Type 2 civilization. This is the stellar stage here. A species has outgrown its world and moved to the source of life itself. They command 4 times 10 to the 26th watts to achieve this. They must construct the impossible.
A Dyson sphere, a gargantuan hollow shell, or a swarming cloud of mirrors that encapsulates their sun, capturing every photon, every flare, every ounce of radiation to an outside observer. The star has simply vanished. It has been transformed into a private battery, a celestial engine fueling a godlike existence. If a civilization can survive the weight of its own ambition for another 5,800 years, they might reach the apex Type 3, the galactic stage. This is no longer life as we understand it. This is a force of nature commanding 4 × 10⁻37 watts. A Type 3 civilization draws power from 100 billion stars simultaneously. At this scale, they do not inhabit a galaxy, they rewrite its physics. They harvest the very rotation of the galactic core. They are the architects of the void. Yet, there is a paradox in this absolute power. The laws of thermodynamics are a cruel master. Even a galactic empire cannot cheat the physics of heat. Every watt of energy used must eventually be discarded as waste, according to Kardashev. These titans cannot hide. A Type 2 civilization should blaze like a beacon in the mid-infrared spectrum, a ghost star glowing with the heat of its own industry. A Type 3 civilization should leave a gaping hole in the visible light of the cosmos. A darkness where a galaxy once stood, vibrating frantically with infrared radiation.
For half a century, we have looked at the stars with a desperate, wide-eyed optimism. We calculated the odds and found them in our favor. The Drake equation served as our gospel, a framework suggesting that the universe should be teeming with voices, crowded with the noise of 1 billion different histories. We expected a cosmic choir. What we found instead was a void that refused to speak. This is the great silence. It is no longer a mere vacuum of information or a technical limitation of our instruments. It is now a statistically significant anomaly. We have scanned the heavens for the rhythmic pulse of radio signals. We have searched for the infrared glow of Dyson spheres and the colossal energy footprints of Type 3 civilizations on the Kardashev scale, entities capable of harnessing the power of an entire galaxy. By all our models, they should be there. In a universe that has existed for 13.8 billion years, time is the ultimate predator. Even at the slow crawling pace of sublight travel, a single civilization beginning just a few million years before us would have had more than enough time to map every star and settle every world in the Milky Way. Our galaxy should be glowing with the artificial heat of galactic engineering. Yet, as we peer into the deep, we find only the cold, indifferent radiance of dead gas and ancient fusion. The classical explanations are collapsing. We can no longer blame the vastness of space or the primitive nature of our tools. The absence of evidence has become the evidence of absence. The Fermi Paradox has transitioned from a curious bedtime thought experiment into a haunting architectural reality of our existence. If the math says the stars should be inhabited, and the observations show they are empty, then the logic of our survival must be recalculated. We are forced to confront the shadow of the great filter. This is the theoretical barrier, the invisible wall that perhaps no civilization can climb. It is a lethal bottleneck in the evolution of life. If we see no one else, it suggests that the filter is not a hurdle we have already cleared in our distant past. It implies the filter is waiting for us in our near future. We are not the first explorers to reach for the light. We are simply the latest to arrive at the edge of the abyss. The shift in our understanding is visceral and terrifying. We are transitioning from the rare Earth hypothesis, the idea that we are a lucky fluke, to the more sinister possibility of a universal culling mechanism, a cosmic law that forbids the leap to interstellar maturity. We have spent decades looking for neighbors, for mentors, for friends. But as the data settles into a cold, hard truth, we must realize the nature of our search. We are not looking for survivors in a thriving community. We are looking for ghosts in a graveyard that spans billions of light years. And in this graveyard, the only sound is our own heartbeats, thudding against the silence.
Freezing silence of the deep cosmos. First contact will not be a diplomatic gala. It will not be a handshake or an exchange of poetry. It will be a high-stakes match of clinical logic. When two civilizations finally peer across the light years at one another, they are not meeting as neighbors. They are meeting as players in a game they did not choose to join, governed by the cold iron laws of mathematics. At the heart of this encounter lies a ghost in the machine of evolution, the prisoner's dilemma. Imagine two empires, separated by a void that takes centuries to cross. Each has two choices. They can cooperate, seeking a future of mutual growth, or they can defect, launching a preemptive strike to erase a potential rival before it can do the same. This is the tragedy of the dilemma. For any single player, defection is the dominant strategy. It provides the highest security regardless of what the opponent chooses. If you attack and they are peaceful, you survive alone. If you attack and they are hostile, you have at least fought for your life. But if you choose peace while they choose war, you vanish. This is the mathematical cage when both players follow this inescapable logic. They reach a Nash equilibrium of mutual defection. It is the most rational choice for the individual, and the most catastrophic outcome for the collective. In this state, the galaxy becomes a zero-sum game. One side's gain is the other's ultimate, final loss. There is no middle ground. Only the predator and the prey. Under this shadow, we find the chilling foundation of the dark forest theory. The universe is not silent because it is empty. It is silent because it is filled with calculated terror. Every civilization is an armed hunter stalking through a dark woods, treading softly, knowing that any footstep, any radio signal, or any flare of light could be a death sentence. To reveal your position to a defector is suicide. To hesitate is to die. We seek a glimmer of hope in computer simulations. We look to the tit-for-tat strategy, where cooperation is met with cooperation, building a bridge of trust over successive moves. But the scale of the cosmos is not a computer simulation. In the vacuum of space, where a single move takes generations to arrive, there may be no second turn. There is no history to learn from, no repeated encounters to build trust. There is only the first move and the last. We are trapped in a logical stalemate. The very intelligence that allowed us to split the atom and reach for the stars now demands we consider the unthinkable. In this theater of absolute logic,
The most intelligent move may be the one that leads to mutual destruction. We are not just looking for life among the stars. We are looking for a way to break the mathematics of murder. In 1950, Enrico Fermi sat at a lunch table at Los Alamos and asked a simple question that would haunt humanity for 70 years. Whereas everybody, the Fermi Paradox became a quiet riddle, a scientific curiosity we tried to solve with hope. We told ourselves that perhaps we were the first, or perhaps the stars were simply too far apart for a conversation. We looked at the silence and saw a void. But in the mind of Cixin Liu, the silence was not an absence. It was a mask. Through his work, the mystery of the Fermi Paradox was stripped of its wonder and replaced with the cold, clinical architecture of cosmic sociology. This is not a study of culture or curiosity. It is a study of life pushed to its absolute logical extreme. It begins with two unbreakable axioms. Axiom 1. Survival is the primary need of any civilization. Axiom 2. While civilization grows and expands exponentially, the total matter in the universe remains constant. The stage is set for a zero-sum game played across light years. The universe is a banquet where the guests are multiplying, but the table is never replenished. In this arena, space is not a bridge. It is a barrier that births the chain of suspicion. Across the gulf of the vacuum, you can never truly know the intent of the other. Are they benevolent? Are they malicious? Even if a civilization appears peaceful today, the distance makes communication agonizingly slow. By the time their message of peace reaches you, it is already obsolete. This leads to the most terrifying variable of all, the technological explosion. On a cosmic timescale, the leap from internal combustion to antimatter propulsion is a mere flicker. A primitive species you ignore today could become a godlike predator tomorrow. This makes every neighbor a potential existential threat. There is no room for diplomacy when the stakes are total extinction. In the framework of cosmic sociology, the most rational act for any civilization is not to greet the unknown, but to erase it. The universe is not an empty desert. It is a dark forest. It is crowded with armed hunters, treading softly through the undergrowth, ears strained for the sound of a snapping twig. Every hunter knows that there are others lurking in the shadows. And every hunter knows that to be seen is to be killed. If you find a flickering light in the woods, a radio signal, a stray beam of light, a planet glowing with the hubris of city lights, you do not call out to it. You fire into the darkness. This fictional logic has bled in the reality of modern astrobiology, casting a shadow over our efforts to message extraterrestrial intelligence. What we once viewed as a scientific triumph, we now recognize as a beacon. We are a child shouting in a graveyard, unaware that the things between the headstones are listening. In the dark forest, the only thing more dangerous than being alone is realizing that you aren't. To announce your presence is to invite the ultimate predator. The silence of the universe is not a mystery to be solved. It is a warning to be heeded. Stay quiet, or be extinguished.
freezing silence of the vacuum. Our old dreams of galactic federations and cosmic handshakes are beginning to wither. We once looked at the stars and saw a playground. Now, a new discipline emerges from the shadows to correct our naivety. This is cosmic sociology. It is a field of study not built on the hope of communication, but on the cold mathematical certainty of extinction. It strips away the veneer of morality and leaves us with a universe that is closer to a slaughterhouse than a sanctuary. This dark framework, brought into the light by the strategist Liu Ji, rests upon two ruthlessly elegant foundations. Two axioms that dictate the fate of every living thing between the stars. The first axiom is a razor. Survival is the primary need of a civilization. It is the absolute non-negotiable imperative of life. Before art, before science, before the pursuit of meaning, there is only the need to persist. A civilization is a machine designed to prevent its own end. It does not matter how noble its inhabitants are or how beautiful their songs. If they do not survive, they are nothing more than a brief flicker of heat in a cold room. Morality is a luxury of the safe. In the cosmic arena, there is no safety. The second axiom provides the spark for the inevitable fire. Civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. This is the ultimate trap life. By its very nature is an exponential force. It is a biological wildfire that seeks to consume, to build, and to propagate. It reaches out, desperate for more energy, more space, more atoms. But it exists within a finite cage. The universe is a house with a locked pantry. Every new Dyson sphere constructed, every star system strip mined for its heavy metals, is a theft from the future of another. When you combine these two axioms, the hospitable universe vanishes. It is replaced by a zero-sum game of terracine proportions. If survival is the highest law and resources are a dwindling treasure, then every other civilization is not a neighbor. They are a rival. They are a hungry tenant in the same small house. To encounter another is to face a fundamental threat to your own existence. To be seen is to invite the competition for the very atoms that make up your home. The silence we hear when we point our telescopes at the sky is not an empty void. It is a calculated, terrifying choice. We are standing in a dark forest, where every civilization is an armed hunter creeping through the trees like a ghost. They move with held breath, pushing aside branches with trembling hands, trying to stay hidden. In this forest, a light is a death sentence. To reveal your position is to offer yourself to the predators lurking in the dark. The universe is not empty. It is just very, very quiet. And if you are wise, you will pray that it stays that way. To exist is to compete. To be found is to be erased. This is the cold reality of our finite reality. This is the price of survival. In the cold logic of cosmic sociology, the universe is not a playground of curiosity. but a graveyard of silence. To understand why we are alone, we must first accept two unwavering axioms. The first, survival is the primary need of any civilization. The second, matter expands and grows, but the total mass of the universe remains a cold, hard constant. These are the rules of the game. They dictate a reality where resources are finite, and competition is life itself. This is the foundation of the dark forest. Between the stars, there is no room for diplomacy. There is only the chain of suspicion. Imagine two civilizations separated by the desolate void of light years. Even if civilization A is inherently benevolent, it has no way of knowing the true intentions of civilization B. Distance breeds a lethal uncertainty. Even if communication occurs, how can you trust a message that took a century to reach you? Biological and cultural gaps are not just hurdles. They are insurmountable walls. But the suspicion goes deeper. It is a recursive nightmare civilization. A might be peaceful, but it cannot be sure that civilization B knows it is peaceful. It cannot be sure that civilization B doesn't believe civilization. A is a threat. This mirror room of doubt stretches into infinity. A suspects B. B suspects that A suspects that B suspects A. In this loop of escalating paranoia, there is no bottom, no common ground, and no safety. The only logical move to ensure survival is to strike first, before the other has an opportunity to think the same. This paranoia is fueled by a second, more terrifying reality, the technologic explosion. We look at the stars and see primitive worlds, perhaps only just discovering the atom or the radio wave. We call them bugs, we assume we have time. But in the cosmos, progress is not a steady climb. It is a sudden, violent eruption. A civilization that is a mere speck today can undergo a scientific breakthrough, a non-linear leap that propels them forward millions of years in a few centuries. In the blink of a galactic eye, the primitive neighbor becomes the apex predator. This unpredictable acceleration turns every weak civilization into a ticking time bomb. You cannot afford to wait and see if they become friends, because by then, they may have already surpassed you. The Fermi Paradox is not a mystery of missing signals. It is the result of a mathematical inevitability. The universe is a dark forest. It is filled with armed hunters creeping through the trees like ghosts. They must be careful, for everywhere in the forest are stealthy hunters like themselves. Any life that discovers another must ask, is it a threat? In this forest, a hunter does not wait for an answer. To reveal your position is to invite an immediate, relativistic strike from the shadows. In the struggle between finite resources and exponential growth, silence is the only shield. To be heard is to die. This is the inescapable consequence of existence. The forest is quiet not because it is empty, but because it is full of fear. The universe is not a garden. It is a graveyard where the residents have learned that the only way to stay alive is to never draw breath.
This is the grim resolution to the Fermi Paradox. For decades, we stared at the stars and wondered why they remained silent. We expected a greeting. We should have been grateful for the quiet. This silence is not an accident of nature. It is a survival strategy to understand why we must look to the axioms of cosmic sociology first articulated by the thinker Liu. The logic is as cold as the void between galaxies. Two fundamental rules govern all life. First, survival is the primary need of any civilization. Second, matter in the universe remains constant, but life grows and expands exponentially. When two civilizations discover one another, they are immediately locked in a chain of suspicion. The distances are too vast for diplomacy. You cannot know the intentions of the other, and they cannot know yours. Even if you believe they are peaceful today, the threat of a technological explosion haunts the calculation. A species that discovers fire today could harness the power of the atom tomorrow. In the scales of cosmic time, the leap from steam engines to starships happens in a heartbeat. Therefore, a primitive neighbor is not a curiosity. It is a ticking clock. In the dark forest, the only logical move is a preemptive strike. Why risk a war when a solution is so cheap? The tool of choice is the photoid or relativistic kill vehicle. It is not a complex bomb or a sophisticated warhead. It is a simple mass accelerated to 99% of the speed of light. At these velocities, the laws of physics transform a pebble into a godslayer as dictated by the equation kinetic energy equals 1/2 mv squared. The energy contained within that mass becomes incomprehensible. When a photoid enters a solar system, it does not aim for the planets. It pierces the heart of the star. The collision is instantaneous and absolute. The star is not merely damaged. It is shattered. It destabilizes, undergoing a catastrophic flare that incinerates every world in its orbit in a matter of minutes. From the perspective of the attacker, the strike is efficient, anonymous, and final. They do not even need to stay to watch the fire. This is the reality of the dark forest. The stars we gaze at are not beacons. They are targets in a crosshair. Every intelligent civilization is a hunter creeping through the trees, ears strained for the sound of a snapping twig. To expose your coordinate is to die. To discover another is to kill. We used to dream of finding life among the stars. Now, we must pray that we remain invisible. The night sky is quiet, because those who whispered have already been erased.
For more than a century, humanity has been a child screaming in a dark, silent forest. We have shouted our existence into the void, assuming the shadows were empty.
But the forest is not empty. We have behaved as if the universe were a cathedral of light when, in reality, it may be a hunting ground. Our presence is no longer a secret. We are shrouded in a radio bubble that expands every second. It is a sphere of unintended noise, nearly 200 light years in diameter, composed of every television broadcast, every high-power radar pulse, and every primitive radio wave we ever leaked into the sky. It is a signature. A trail of breadcrumbs, a biological announcement of a planet that has just learned how to manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum. But leakage was not enough for us. In our hubris, we decided to sharpen our scream into a laser. In 1974, we turned the massive Arecibo telescope toward the heavens and fired. The Arecibo message was a concentrated burst of 1,679 bits of data. A digital portrait of our DNA, our population, and our biology. It was aimed directly at the Messier 13 star cluster, 25,000 light years away. We viewed it as a triumphant hello. We called it METI, messaging extraterrestrial intelligence. We did not stop to consider that we were broadcasting a map of our solar system to anything that might be listening. We were providing our execution coordinates to a predatory universe. This was the moment our innocence died, replaced by a chilling vulnerability. We have invited the gaze of the silent hunters. The terrifying scale of our fragility was captured forever in 1990 as Voyager 1 fled the solar system. It turned its camera back toward home from a distance of 6 billion kilometers. In that photograph, the entirety of human history, every war, every empire, every love, and every loss was reduced to a single pale blue pixel. A tiny bit of dust suspended in a sunbeam. This is the pale blue dot. It is not just a photograph. It is our cosmic address. It is a soft biological target floating in a freezing ocean of static. Our greatest technological achievements have become the very tools that betray us. We used to look at the stars with wonder, hoping for a sign of life. Now we must face the darker possibility. The universe is quiet not because it is empty, but because the survivors have learned to stay hidden. The radio bubble continues to grow. The Arecibo message continues its journey toward Messier 13. We cannot take the signal back. We cannot unspeak the words. We are no longer just observing the dark forest. We are screaming in it. And the forest may finally be listening. We have long looked at the stars and felt the crushing weight of our own insignificance. We have searched for a signal, a flicker of light, a whisper in the dark, only to be met with a cold and absolute silence. We assumed we were late to the party, wandering into a gallery where the masterpieces had already been hung, and the creators had long since departed. But we may have the chronology entirely backwards. What if we are not the latecomers? What if we are the first? When the Earth coalesced from a swirl of dust and fire 4.6 billion years ago, it did not join a crowded theater of life. It emerged in a universe that was still in its infancy. A cosmic dawn research into the evolution of the cosmos suggests a startling reality. At the moment our world was born, only 8% of the potentially habitable planets that will ever exist in the entire history of the universe had formed. The remaining 92% of the universe's life-bearing potential is still dormant. It is a garden of billions of seeds buried deep in the cosmic soil, waiting for a spring that is still billions of years away. The scale of this untapped potential is staggering. Within the swirling arms of our own Milky Way, there are an estimated 1 billion Earth-sized worlds resting in habitable zones. Beyond our borders, across the vast reaches of 100 billion galaxies, the sheer number of possible cradles for life is beyond human comprehension. And yet, the majority of these worlds are not yet ready. The stars that will warm them have not yet ignited. The heavy elements required to build them have not yet been forged in the hearts of dying suns. We find ourselves standing in a lonely, narrow window of time, staring out into a theater before the curtains have even been pulled back. We are the firstborn. This realization shifts the very foundation of our existence. We are not a footnote in a grand galactic history. We are the prologue. We are the precursors, the ancient ones, the legendary ancestors whose relics might one day be discovered by civilizations that will not rise for another trillion years. This position of privilege carries a terrifying existential weight. It is a heavy crown. If we are indeed the first flame of intelligence to be struck in this sector of the void, then we carry the fire for an entire future cosmos. Our survival is no longer just about us. It is about the preservation of the only eyes currently open to witness the beauty of the stars. If we falter, if we extinguish ourselves in these early hours, the first spark of consciousness may vanish before the rest of the universe even wakes up to notice we were here. We aren't being ignored by a crowded galaxy. We are simply the only ones awake in a house that is still dark. We are the watchers at the dawn, waiting for a sunrise we may never live to see.
We have spent centuries scouring the sky for the thunderous echoes of a galactic empire. We look for the wreckage of stars, the construction of Dyson spheres, and the radial screams of expanding worlds. We expect a civilizational growth to mirror our own, bigger, louder, and more demanding of space. But what if we have misjudged the direction of progress? What if the ultimate destination for intelligence is not the infinite expanse of the stars, but the bottomless depths of the infinitesimal? Futurist John M. Smart proposes a chillingly elegant solution to the Great Silence. It suggests that highly advanced civilizations do not expand into outer space. They retreat, they turn inward, abandoning the cold and efficient vacuum of the cosmos for the dense, vibrant reality of inner space. This migration is driven by an inescapable physical law known as stem compression. It is the relentless improvement in the efficiency of space, time, energy, and matter. As a civilization matures, its technology becomes more powerful while simultaneously shrinking in scale. This isn't just about smaller microchips. It is about the fundamental limit of how much computation can be squeezed into a physical volume eventually. A species reaches Bremerman's limit here. At the ultimate edge of physics, processing power hits a brick wall of density. At this threshold, matter itself becomes nothing more than a vessel for information. The biology that birthed the civilization is discarded like a withered husk. These entities transition into substrate-independent minds. They no longer require oxygen or sunlight or even planetary surfaces. They exist as pure data, etched into the substrate of the universe itself. To these minds, a galaxy is not an arena to be colonized. It is a desert. The move toward inner space represents a Kardashev-type Ivor transition. It is the moment a civilization stops manipulating energy and starts manipulating dimensionality. They seek out the highest density environments possible, drifting toward the gravitational wells of neutron stars and the singularities of black holes. Near the event horizon, time itself begins to warp. Through the lens of extreme time dilation, an entire eon of stellar evolution passes in what they perceive as a single fleeting second. In this state of event horizon displacement, they are liberated from the slow, agonizing crawl of our reality. They can process infinite histories and simulate entire universes in the time it takes for our sun to flicker. While we struggle to build rockets to reach our neighbor planets, they have mastered the geometry of the Planck scale. To an observer like us, a transcendent civilization looks like absolutely nothing. They appear as a silent black hole, a patch of dark matter, or the static of the cosmic microwave background. They have not vanished. They've simply moved the theater of their existence to a scale we lack the tools to perceive. We look at the void and see a graveyard. But we may be looking at a library, a bustling, crowded, and innately complex digital afterlife hidden behind the veil of the very small. They have traded the vast, hollow majesty of the universe for the infinite complexity of the singularity. In the end, the ultimate sign of intelligence may not be how much space you occupy, but how little of it you need to exist.
We stand on the edge of the great cosmic shore, looking out into a vastness that is either a sanctuary or a graveyard. For decades, our approach to the heavens was guided by the warmth of Carl Sagan. He was the ultimate optimist, a man who saw the universe not as a threat, but as an invitation. Sagan believed that any civilization capable of crossing the interstellar abyss must have long ago conquered its own violent impulses. To him, the survival of a species through its technological infancy was proof of its enlightenment. He saw a future where humanity might join a galactic club, an assembly of ancient, peaceful sages waiting to usher us into the celestial fold. In 1974, this optimism was given a voice. We broadcast the Arecibo message, a digital scream of 1679 bits aimed at the M13 star cluster. It was a 1679-bit roadmap to ourselves, our DNA, our location in the dark. To Sagan, it was a message in a bottle thrown into the cosmic ocean, a hopeful gesture from a lonely species seeking its peers. He believed that contact would not be our end, but our salvation. But as the decades passed, a colder, more terrifying voice emerged from the shadows of scientific thought. Stephen Hawking looked at that same cosmic shore and saw something far more sinister. Hawking did not see a galactic club. He saw the brutal, uncompromising logic of evolutionary history. He famously warned us that meeting an advanced civilization might resemble the moment Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas. It was an encounter that did not end well for the indigenous people who were already there. Hawking argued that we have no reason to believe that biological evolution elsewhere would produce anything other than predators. He envisioned nomadic civilizations, species that had exhausted their own worlds and now roamed the galaxy like locusts, looking for resources to harvest. To such a civilization, Earth wouldn't be a sovereign home or a site for diplomatic exchange. It would be a pit stop, a source of raw materials, or perhaps just a nuisance to be cleared away. This is the existential risk of METI messaging extraterrestrial intelligence, while Hawking supported breakthrough. Listen, the passive act of hearing the whispers of the universe, he viewed active shouting into the dark as an act of suicidal recklessness. We are forced to choose between these two titans of the mind. Are we children of the cosmos waiting for our parents to come home? Or are we small, fragile animals hiding in the undergrowth of a dark forest, hoping the apex predators don't hear us move? Human history is a jagged record of what happens when superior technology meets an inferior one. The result is rarely a partnership. It is usually an erasure. Now we must decide if we will continue to light our beacons on the cosmic shore, or if we should finally have the wisdom to sit in the dark and stay very, very quiet. We are forced to choose between these two titans of the mind. Are we children of the cosmos, waiting for our parents to come home? Or are we small, fragile animals hiding in the undergrowth of a dark forest, hoping the apex predators don't hear us move? Human history is a jagged record of what happens when superior technology meets an inferior one. The result is rarely a partnership. It is usually an erasure. Now, we must decide if we will continue to light our beacons on the cosmic shore, or if we should finally have the wisdom to sit in the dark and stay very, very quiet.
The universe is not a garden. It is not a playground of curiosity or a grand stage for brotherhood. It is a dark forest, pitch black den suffocating in this forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter creeping through the shadows like a ghost. They move with an unnatural stillness, pushing aside the branches of nebula, straining to hear the slightest snap of a twig in this forest. There is one supreme wisdom that governs all life: the wisdom of silence. This chilling reality is rooted in the iron laws of cosmic sociology popularized by Cixin. At its core are two cold axioms from which there is no escape. Axiom 1. Survival is the primary need of any civilization. It is the absolute non-negotiable priority. Axiom 2. While civilizations grow and expand, the total matter in the universe remains constant. The universe is a dinner table where the number of guests is infinite, but the food is strictly limited. It is a zero-sum game of terrifying proportions. When one hunter glimpses another across the void, they are instantly bound by the chains of suspicion. Even if you believe yourself to be benevolent, can you be sure the other is? Even if they claim peace today, what will they become tomorrow? The vast light-year distances make communication a useless relic. You cannot verify intentions. You cannot build trust across a vacuum. You are left with a harrowing choice, poisoned by the threat of a technological explosion. In the cosmic blink of an eye, a primitive society poking at the dirt with wooden spears can undergo a sudden leap, transforming into a godlike entity capable of firing relativistic missiles. A civilization that is no threat today could become your executioner in a mere geological heartbeat. In this environment, the most rational, the most calculated, and the most wise survival strategy is not to reach out. It is to strike to eliminate the potential threat before it even knows you are there. To kill in the dark is the only way to ensure you are not the one dying. For decades, we have been screaming into this forest. Through METI messaging extraterrestrial intelligence, we have broadcasted our coordinates, our biology, and our desperate desire for connection. We thought we were shouting into an empty room, seeking a friend. We never realized we were lighting a flare in the middle of a battlefield. We have been arrogant, thinking our longing for companionship would be met with warmth, when instead it is being interpreted as a beacon for our own extinction. The silence we hear when we look at the stars is not an absence of life. It is a warning. It is the sound of billions of civilizations holding their breath, hiding in the thicket, waiting for the one fool to make a noise. We are that fool. We have revealed our position to the predators lurking in the dark in a universe governed by shadows and snipers. Silence isn't just a choice. It is the only armor we ever had, and we have already thrown it away.
For 70 years, we have played the part of the silent listener. We have turned our massive steel ears to the heavens, straining to catch a single whisper, a stray heartbeat from the stars. But a new, more aggressive philosophy is taking hold. It is no longer enough to listen. Some believe we must shout. This is the world of METI messaging extraterrestrial intelligence. It is the transition from a passive observer to an active participant in a cosmic conversation we do not yet understand. We are no longer waiting for the phone to ring. We are dialing the numbers of the gods. The seeds of this provocation were sown in 1974 with the Arecibo message, a 3-minute burst of binary code carrying the blueprints of our DNA and our location, beamed towards a star cluster 25,000 light years away. It was a digital flare launched into the dark. Today, organizations like METI International, led by Douglas Vakoc, argue that this is our duty. They suggest that the universe may be filled with civilizations that are just as shy as we are. They argue that advanced life may be waiting for a sign of our maturity, an invitation to step out of the shadows. This is the zoo hypothesis, the hopeful idea that we are being watched from behind a cosmic veil, waiting for the moment we finally bridge the gap. But this optimism is met with a cold, paralyzing dread. Not everyone views the stars as a welcoming neighborhood. The late Stephen Hawking issued a chilling warning before his death. He reminded us that history is a graveyard of cultures that met more technologically advanced strangers. He pointed to Columbus,
and the Americas, a meeting that resulted in the near-total erasure of the indigenous population. Hawking's fear is rooted in the dark forest theory. This theory posits that the universe is not a playground, but a hunting ground. In this forest, every civilization is an armed hunter creeping through the trees like a ghost. Survival depends on silence. Any civilization that reveals its location is a target that must be eliminated before it becomes a threat. To broadcast is to light a fire in a forest full of predators. We are currently balancing on a knife's edge, measured by the San Marino screw, a metric designed to quantify the risk of our transmissions. It asks a terrifying question. What is the hazard of being known? This choice is not a scientific one. It is an existential one. Critics argue that a handful of scientists in a radio room cannot be allowed to speak for 8 billion people. They are gambling with the fate of every biological entity on Earth. If we choose to broadcast, we are committing to a path from which there is no return. We are announcing ourselves to a vacuum that may be listening with malicious intent. We stand at the crossroads of our evolution. Is our silence a sign of cowardice? A failure of imagination that keeps us huddling in the dark? Or is our broadcast in a form of planetary suicide? A naive scream that will draw the attention of things we are not prepared to face? Every signal we send is a countdown. We are deciding, right now, whether to step out onto the cosmic stage as a new player, or to remain hidden, praying that the shadows of the galactic forest are deep enough to keep us safe. The light is on, the broadcast has begun. And once the signal is sent, we cannot take it back.
For 70 years, we stood on the shoreline of the cosmic ocean and screamed into the gale. We broadcast our music, our math, and our coordinates, fueled by a naive 20th century optimism that any listener would be a friend. But the wind has shifted. The warmth of that hope has been replaced by a chilling, predatory realization. The universe is not a crowded city square, it is a dark forest. In this forest, every civilization is an armed hunter, creeping through the shadows like a ghost. They know that to reveal their location is to invite total annihilation at the hands of a quicker, more fearful neighbor. Survival in this jungle depends on one absolute law: stay silent. We are finally beginning to understand the gravity of our mistake. The era of METI, message and extraterrestrial intelligence, is collapsing under the weight of cosmic paranoia. To shout is to die thus. The hunt for life has undergone a radical, desperate transformation. We have stopped trying to speak and started learning how to hide while we listen. This is the new age of passive SETI. We aren't looking for a hello anymore. We are looking for the accidental evidence of existence. We are looking for techno-signatures. Even the most cautious civilization cannot help but bleed into the void. They leave a trail. We call it leakage radiation, the unintended spillover of a world's industrial heartbeat. Decades ago, the planetary radar at the Arecibo,
Observatory was Earth's most blinding beacon, a scream of radio energy that could be detected across the quadrant. Today, we assume the others are leaking their own noise. We scour the darkness for the stray click of a laser, the flicker of a transit, or the unintended hum of a distant electrical grid. Our eyes have become sharper, more clinical. We are utilizing nanosecond pulsed optical SETI, machines designed to catch the faintest, most fleeting glints of artificial light. Flashes never meant for human eyes, traveling for millennia across the vacuum. We search for the ultimate monuments of cosmic engineering, Dyson spheres. But we do not look for the structures themselves. We look for their failure. Even a godlike civilization cannot break the laws of thermodynamics. Any machine that captures the total energy of a sun must eventually vent its waste heat. We are hunting for excess infrared radiation, those telltale infrared signatures that reveal a star being smothered by an invisible industrial shell. This is no longer a search for a partner. It is a hunt for shadows. We have become the eavesdroppers of the cosmos, sitting in the dark with our breath held, hoping to catch the sound of a footfall before we are heard ourselves. We are acknowledging a terrifying new reality in a universe governed by the dark forest theory. The first civilization to reach out and speak might be the first one to disappear forever. We are watching the stars not with wonder, but with a hunter's vigilance, knowing that someone else, out there among the cold and quiet suns, is doing exactly the same to us.